Good morning, good afternoon or good evening, as appropriate to where you're joining us from today. My name is Naomi Parker. I'm the Executive Director of the Ag Emissions Centre. For those of you who may not have heard, the Ag Emissions Centre is the new name of the New Zealand Agricultural Greenhouse Gas Research Centre. Same mission, just a bit shorter and easier to remember. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our State of Science webinar series. We're delighted to have you all in our audience. We've got lots more exciting webinars planned for the rest of the year, so please keep an eye on our socials for more information on those. But now to what we have in store for you today. We have two speakers from AgriZeroNZ who will be talking to us about turning innovation into action. AgriZeroNZ is a world-first public-private partnership focused on helping farmers cut emissions and maintain their competitive edge. It was established on the 1st of February 2023 and is half owned by the New Zealand government and half owned by major agribusiness companies and banks. AgriZero is also our strategic partner. We work very closely with the AgriZero team to play our respective roles in getting tools and technologies into the hands of farmers as soon as possible. Deborah Roach and David McDonald are our speakers this morning. Deborah's role is Head of Catalyst, which focuses on system-wide funding and unblocking constraints to accelerate research and support delivery and uptake of emission reduction tools. Deborah has held executive roles for over 15 years in agriculture and human health. She led the policy and trade team at the Ministry for Primary Industries, with responsibility for all policy from animal welfare to food safety, agricultural, climate change policy, market access and trade settings, covering over 75% of New Zealand's exports. And she's currently a director of Lucidome Bio. David's role is Head of Ventures. He manages the investment portfolio, which includes local and global companies who are developing solutions to reduce biogenic methane and nitrous oxide emissions from ruminant animals. David was originally a structural engineer and has developed extensive experience in the agriculture and finance industry, having worked at Fonterra for the previous 11 years. David's roles included M&A manager, running Fonterra's USD 1 billion protein business, and portfolio manager for Fonterra's financial trading portfolio. David currently sits on the boards of Hoofprint Biome, Agteria Biotech and Agriceutical Products New Zealand. Before I hand to Deborah to kick things off, just a note to please submit your questions as we go, and we'll get through as many as we can after the presentation. The presentation will be recorded and a link provided on the Ag Emissions Centre website within the next week. With that intro, it's my pleasure to hand you over to Deborah Roach to kick things off. Over to you, Deborah.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, everybody. It's great to be here. I'm just going to load our screen. Hopefully you can all see that now. Okay, so we are AgriZeroNZ and we are here to focus on investing in tools for a low emissions future. So in our conversation today, I'm going to talk about what we are here to achieve and our approach to this. And David will then talk you through our current portfolio, our investment considerations, and how we invest, both in terms of the catalyst and ventures functions. And then, as Naomi said, we'll have plenty of time for discussion and any questions at the end. So as Naomi said, we are a partnership between the government, major agribusiness and New Zealand banks. This is a world first arrangement to really focus on reducing agricultural emissions. So we're half owned by government through the Ministry for Primary Industries, which is fantastic, and it's also one of our key regulators. And the other half we're owned by our major agribusinesses. You can see them on the slide, and our key banks. And we work really closely with the Ag Emissions Centre as a strategic science partner. And so we have very collaborative engagement with them, and we have quite distinct roles across the shared objective for getting tools into the farmers' hands. At AgriZero, we focus on commercial acceleration, and at the Agriculture and Emissions Centre, they're focused on science and research acceleration. And this collaboration is a really powerful strength in how we can work collectively to solve this challenge.
Hey, Deborah, we can't see your screen.
How do you mean?
We can't see the presentation.
Oh dear, I don't know why. Is it sharing now? Sorry, guys.
Yep, perfect.
It says I'm sharing. Cool, thank you. Apologies, everybody. Lucky I hadn't got any numbers up yet. And so this is our ambition, is to ensure all farmers in Aotearoa have equitable access to affordable, effective solutions to reduce biogenic methane and nitrous oxide emissions, with a goal of supporting a 30% reduction by 2030 and enabling development and adoption of solutions to drive towards net zero by 2040. This is a really bold ambition. It's not a target, and it's fundamentally based on giving farmers access to the tools that achieve this. And how do we do this? We do this by undertaking targeted investments and actions to accelerate the development and deployment of solutions to secure our future competitiveness, to meet global customer demands, to maintain market access and protect trade agreements, and really to de-risk the delivery of our national targets by working together. And our strength is in our collective. We have over $190 million in our first 4 years, and this is a really significant capital to support our ambition, and it's an absolutely focused remit for the benefit of New Zealand's farmers. At AgriZero, we bring deep experience across the sector and supply chain and really close relationships with our regulators, both the Ministry for Primary Industries and the Environmental Protection Agency. And through our limited partners and investors, we are connected to almost every farmer in New Zealand, which provides us a really unique position to offer support through bringing tools to market. But why do we need to reduce emissions? Climate change is a fundamental threat to our agriculture sector, not just from changing weather, but for our all-important trade economy as well. If we just take a glance at our key customers, you can see here that by 2030, most of our key customers are requiring significant reduction in their Scope 3 emissions, and they've set really ambitious targets through their supply chain to achieve these, and this impacts directly on our processors and farmers. And as a small trading nation, we really rely on the sale of our premium grass-fed products to premium global companies. This powers our economy, provides jobs, and supports our rural communities. So it's really imperative that we can meet these requirements and support our government's ambitions in reducing methane and nitrous oxide levels. If we look at the next slide, we just think about these numbers, courtesy of MPI and Stats New Zealand. This really shows us what's at stake, and the importance of why we need to reduce ag emissions just can't be understated. You all know agriculture is the backbone of our economy. We're running across about $46 billion worth of exports. And on the slide here, you'll see in the yellow, that's the top 10 markets for dairy coming in at around $26 billion. In red is the red meat and wool sector at 12 billion, and in the green is agriculture at 8 billion. So you can see that in exporting 90 to 95% of our products, we also have an outsized impact on methane emissions in the supply chain for these companies. So our farmers need to reduce emissions to meet both the demands of our global customers and also of our trading partners. And a significant chunk of our free trade agreements also require enforceable emissions and sustainability targets. So this is an absolute challenge that we are here to support New Zealand farmers and our processors in achieving. So how does AgriZero do this? How do we work internally to achieve our ambition? Well, we are singly focused on ramping up investments and actions to provide our New Zealand farmers with access to these effective solutions, but that are also affordable, so that we can significantly reduce emissions, but at the same time retain our international competitiveness and our productivity. So we go about this with 3 guiding principles that informs how we work. Kaitiakitanga, remembering we're doing this for what's the right thing for our land, our climate, our economy, and our people, for every New Zealander and every person that visits our shores. Whanaungatanga, really working collaboratively, bringing a global lens to help farmers in New Zealand achieve. And hautūtanga, striving for significant impact to lead progress in pasture-based emissions in New Zealand, but also internationally. By becoming internationally renowned in this field, we can attract more people to this challenge and get a greater impact at a faster pace. So we have 3 core functions to deliver this. Our strategy and engagement function is out there building global partnerships, scanning the landscape, looking at emerging trends in and context to help inform what we do from an investment perspective. David, leading our ventures team, is investing capital to accelerate the capability in both domestic and international companies to drive tech acceleration and into production as soon as possible. And through the catalyst function, we invest and co-invest to accelerate existing research and innovation programs, but also working with colleagues to spur innovation and collaborative technology development domestically and innovation and internationally. And an example of this is the joint and innovation investment round that we've just run with the Agricultural Emissions Centre. But all of this activity is absolutely critical that it's embedded within New Zealand farmers, how they operate and what they do on their daily life practice, so that when these tools come to market, it's easier for them to uptake them and use them on a daily basis. So recently we have set up a farmer focus group, which is aimed to work with us to inform what we do in terms of how tools can fit on farm. And we've done this because we know farmers care deeply about this issue. And it's really important that we involve them in the process as we look to bring tools to market, working with our various investment companies. So we set out an expression of interest, and we have 12 passionate farmers from very diverse backgrounds and regions across New Zealand. And they come from upper Northland to the deeper south, beef and lamb to dairy farmers, and they provide us with their views and their feedback regarding the implementation of these tools. And like all of us, everyone has different views, and so do these guys, and that gives a richness of how we operate. For example, Emma, she's a sheep and beef farmer. She'd be quite happy to use a bolus. Laura's not so, she's also a sheep and beef farmer. She's not so keen on using a bolus. And that's completely fine, and it informs why we want a range of tools and a range of options available for farmers to choose from. So looking ahead, what does this mean? We expect to have at least 2 to 3 tools in widespread use across New Zealand farms by 2030 in order to achieve our ambition and to help our New Zealand farmers maintain their competitive edge. So we've been focused in our first couple of years on the left-hand side, ramping up investments and supporting companies and investors to go through proof of concept and into animal trials, and growing our investment portfolio to ensure that we have a wide range of options available from farmers, from pasture-based options to things like a bolus. And then we will work through with these companies to support them through the approval cycle into the regulatory processes, and importantly, early adoption. So we can get out there early and understand if there's any issues around tool uptake or use at a practical level, work back with our invested companies to shape them and help them get into full available use for commercialization and widespread adoption. So that's how we're thinking about it from a business perspective at a macro global level. And now I'll move over to David to talk about at a practical level what that means for us in terms of how we look at our investments, how we make investment decisions, the kinds of information that we require in order to make these investments. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Good morning, everyone. So here is our Q3 scorecard, which summarises what we've been doing. You can see there our total funds, 191 million, and we have committed 61 of that so far. And so the majority of that is to tools and technologies. And so that's involved 9 different venture companies that we've invested in and taken equity in. We've also made 5 catalyst investments, which have different commercial relationships there. We also have a fair number on our radar because we realise we will need a few more investments to make sure we've covered all the different technology types, which will assist in helping the different dairy systems, dairy, beef and deer and sheep systems in New Zealand to reduce emissions. We expect our first tool to be in market or available at least in 2026. That is exciting, but still a lot of work to do with some of the other tools. We're very focused on ensuring that these companies do come to New Zealand. As Deborah mentioned, they are domestic and international investments. And so as part of our remit, we will ensure that those companies have to commercialise their products within New Zealand, as that will help us in meeting our purpose. If we just go to the next slide there, Deborah. So how do we make these decisions? We get a lot of questions about this. And so really the first thing is the applicability for the New Zealand farming system and generally the pastoral-based system. We see a lot of tools and technologies overseas that are designed for the arguably easier to solve feedlot system. So we won't invest in that unless they have a pathway to have a tool that is applicable for our farming system. And so really that is about having a slow release type mechanism or a mechanism that lasts long in the rumen. So it's a key aspect of how we look at things. Secondly is the efficacy. So we have a 30% reduction by 2030 ambition. And so that means we will need a number of different tools with different efficacy numbers to stack to hit that number. We realise that not all farmers will take up the tools as well. So we would need relatively high efficacy numbers to make it worthwhile. And some of the efficacy numbers are up around 80%, which is fantastic. But also some are down around the 10% also. And we'll look at both. We think, different options will work for different farmers. So we'll definitely consider all of those options. Productivity is a key aspect, and that leans into that fourth point, affordability. So we need to ensure that farmers aren't worse off and ultimately better off by adopting these tools. Not all the tools that we're looking at have productivity benefits, but we do make sure that they don't have productivity negative aspects, and because that's a key factor, and we realise there won't be adoption widespread if we don't look at that. There's also other ways that these products will be taken up. There's incentives from the co-ops and the processors, and so in different mechanisms around the world that are incentivizing farmers to take these tools up. Stackability. So we do have a range of technologies, and I'll go to them shortly, but we look at the stackability in terms of you may have a pasture, you may have a vaccine, you may have a feed additive, and all of these things will act interdependently between each other. So we've got to ensure that there's a number of tools that can work together to achieve that ambition. Ease of adoption. And so we don't want to change farming systems dramatically at all. We want this to be an easy thing that farmers, are happy to do and want to do. And so Deborah mentioned the bolus example, may work for some, may not work for some, but it's, those are considerations that we are looking. And on the other end, you can look at the pastures, for example, where you have, widespread adoption would be probably easier than some of the other tools that we do look at. Commercial viability. So these technologies that we invest in have to show a pathway to a successful business model, because we see the company not, we don't want to fund the company or subsidize the company the whole way through its commercialization pathway. So there needs to be something in that company to make it a good company that will be there in longevity. And finally, it's the time to market. So when we look at these companies, some of them have, many years of trials and research and, large-scale animal trials that need to be done before they'll be able to be deployed in New Zealand. And so we need something sooner than that. 2030 is our ambition, but we want tools in the hands of farmers before that. And so, as I said, 2026 will be the first, hopefully the first, tool available. But we want to see more tools available, 27, 28, and 29. A lot of that comes down to the stage of that technology. It is a relatively new area that people are looking at, and there's also the regulation pathway, which is a key aspect. We don't want our largely export reliant nation put at risk through anything that is happening here. So a key aspect in terms of our investment decision. So here's a list of the nine plus a few that we have invested in so far. I'll give a quick summary of them. So AgriZeroNZ products, so that's a UK company where they have found that the active in daffodils reduces enteric methane. We have partnered with them and we have brought that company to New Zealand, and they are currently testing at Lincoln. Very early stage, but looking at both productivity benefits and methane reduction as part of their molecule. Acteria Biotech, so they are based in Sweden, and they have also a molecule which is a feed additive that has shown up to 30 to 50% reduction in cattle and actually dairy too. So an exciting tech. A great example, I guess, of our model here is that they were focusing on Europe, and we invested in them and made sure that they have to come to New Zealand. And so now they are doing tests and trials, animal trials here in New Zealand. So we're hopeful to see those results very shortly. Archaea Bio, so it's a vaccine company based in Boston, quite well developed. They've got proof of concept, and are looking to, really dial down on the increased efficacy and roll that out in the upcoming years. Biolumic, so based in Palmerston North, you may have heard of them. The Katua Fund has also just recently invested in them. So they are using UV light to program seeds to bring out different aspects and different gene aspects of the seed. Exciting technology, both looking at high lipid content and higher productivity gains within those seeds. We realise the seeds need to be applicable for a New Zealand ryegrass system and have that persistence to make it worthwhile for farmers to switch over. Bovotica, recent investment. I think on the snapshot it was undisclosed, but now we have announced that since that snapshot. So they're using, they have identified the microbes that are present in low emitting animals, and they are trying to take those microbes and feed them to the high emitting animals, and via a probiotic and a prebiotic to reduce the whole methane average of the herd. Exciting tech, but very early stage and based in Queensland. Hopefront Biome, they're our second investment. So they are also looking at probiotics and enzymes. To reduce methane. They've got great numbers so far, and they're also looking at a pretty steady productivity increase. Just recently got more funding from SOSV Ventures in the US. So they're going very well on their pathway. Lucidome Biome, who I'll let Deborah talk to just after this, as she's on the board there, another vaccine company in New Zealand. And I must mention Ruminant Biotech, so developing slow release biodegrading bolus. So they've seen phenomenal reduction in methane, and they are very close to market. Very well developed. They're our first investment, and we're working closely with the team on their release in New Zealand. So those are our investments. I'll just get you to talk to Lucidome, if I may, Deborah.
Thanks, David. So Lucidome Bio is a really good example of how a catalyst investment can support work into the venture side. So we had the pleasure of picking up the work that had been pre-funded by and still funded by the Agricultural Emissions Centre and the Partial Greenhouse Gas Research Consortium, which is like Beef and Lamb New Zealand, Fonterra, etc. And that work had been going on for some time doing research into methane vaccine, and absolutely world leading from a science perspective. But like quite a lot of research that we've been finding, it's been working much more on an annualized basis, quite hard to get funding beyond an annual or 2-year cycle, and therefore the research is constrained by the amount of time the funding lasts. So we've come along and set it up as an investment, as a venture company, so that we can give it many more millions of dollars and a clearer runway and put a much sharper focus on developing a methane vaccine. And that then transfers within our business from a catalyst investment into the ventures approach. And David takes it over for usual performance. Thank you.
So if we go to the next slide there, Yeah, so we're still open. So if there is anyone on this call that has a fantastic idea and they've seen our remit to reduce nitrous oxide and enteric methane on farm, then please do get in touch. We still have some dry powder to spend, and we're looking forward to supporting our existing companies as they get into market by 2030. But yeah, keen to hear from anyone that may have some great ideas out there.
Great. Thank you, David and Deborah. So we've got one question so far that I can see. I can find some questions myself, I'm quite sure, to warm things up. So the first question is, what does early adoption implementation look like, and who's responsible for supporting this? How do we get practical tools out to everyday farmers, and how does AgriZero support the uptake?
So when we look at early adoption, we're looking at it from sort of awareness. So farmers and suppliers being aware of these tools as they're coming into market, the utilization. So what segment of the farming community will be able to take up these tools. And then we will be working with the company and our farmer focus group and through our investors and their own stakeholder groups with farmers to increase awareness and uptake and work through the mechanism alongside these companies to support adoption and uptake. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. I was going to ask, are there any key gaps in your portfolio? And we've now just got a question saying, what are you planning in the nitrous oxide space? So those two questions go together a little bit, I think.
Yeah, I'll answer that. So yeah, the question was answered. Nitrous oxide, we don't have anything. So yeah, so 51% of the nitrous oxide emissions come from urine patches, and not probably what was common thought around the fertilizer side of things. And so the technology is available to treat urine patches. As I mentioned, our investment criteria, we look at efficacy and how we can get the biggest bang for our buck in terms of reducing emissions. And so in the nitrous oxide space, it is that urine patch. We are looking at a couple of companies, one very closely, and so hopefully we can fill a gap there soon. But yeah, there definitely is work to do in that space, and new opportunities to identify.
Do you fund proof of concept studies? And if not, where to find funding for that?
Proof of concept, no. So ventures typically wouldn't. We are keen to talk to everyone though. There are different avenues, and Deborah, you might want to mention the fund that you launched not so long ago.
Yeah, so with the innovation investment round that we did with the agricultural investment decision, there was absolutely the opportunity for researchers to apply for funding through that route. We also can invest in collaborations to support the development of new technology, like we're doing with the methane inhibitor program, which is a small synthetic molecule research program that we're investing in alongside the Agricultural Emissions Centre to identify a molecule that can do that. So we're at that phase at the moment. So there's absolutely the potential for that, but it needs to have an eye through to being able to be commercialised and adopted on farm for pasture-based farming in New Zealand.
I'll just add to that if anyone does have an idea which is more at that proof of concept space, feel free to get in touch with either AgriZero or the Ag Emissions Centre, and we can look at whether or not either of us would be interested in looking at it and supporting it to get to that next stage. We've got a question: is there an investment application form?
There's not an investment application as such, but just on our last slide, we've got a contact us site on our website, which is at www.agrizero.nz. So you can get hold of us that way, or David and I have our usual email addresses, which is just our name with a dot in the middle and agrizero.nz. And so when requests come in through the website, they get looked at and we determine whether it's best taken up through the Catalyst Ventures investment angle, or if it's a strategy and engagement piece. And most often we end up having a collective meeting with people as a first reader, and then we sort of work through together the best way to take your ideas forward. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a follow-up question, which is around the level of detail required, but I think it's to start the conversation. David, you had a really nice list of the things that you think about, but so I assume people would want to have thought through those things before they get in touch, but just reach out. The next question we have is, do we have a real-time measure of efficacy on farm? What evidence will we need to demonstrate these things are working?
So for these products to be registered in New Zealand, they'll have to go through an ACVM approval, and as part of that, you have to register your efficacy numbers, and so that will mean going through a rigorous animal trials to prove that your technology works in different conditions, and only then will you be able to claim that product on the label. And so that's ever moving, that piece of work. We're helping the regulator, ACVM and MPI, the processes getting involved, because they also want to see different, make sure things are correct, so they're claiming the right things. So yeah, there will be a rigorous process, and that's why getting these tools to market won't be a cheap exercise, because we will need to do that animal testing to ensure that everything we do is correct and accurate.
There's a sort of a related question, which is around, do you have any role in the measurement of ag emissions and demonstrating the ongoing effectiveness of your work as tools get into the hands of farmers? Would either of you like to comment on that one?
Sure, that's a great question, and it's a really live internal discussion for us as well, because as these tools come into market, of course, the really important thing is that they can also move into the inventory in terms of our greenhouse gas accounting. So we are in discussion with MPI and the Ag Emission Centre around how that transition can assist, because getting a tool onto farm and then the kind of measurements across the country by different farm types, weather patterns, percentage of uptake will be really material for ensuring that it goes into the inventory. And MPI has been really great in supporting how that pathway is going to look for the investments that we make and anyone else that's involved in this aspect. Thank you.
Thanks, Deborah. What's the business case for farmer adoption? Is AgriZero funding any cost-benefit analysis on farm for these technologies?
Are we funding cost-benefit analysis? Yeah, we for every company we invest in, we do our own cost-benefit analysis to see whether we think there will be adoption. We won't invest in something that is so expensive that no one will ever fund it to be on farm. It's a key consideration, and I mentioned productivity and the affordability earlier in those slides, and so that comes into those calculations. There'll, like with most new technology, there may be a stage at the start where it needs some market seeding, but ultimately there needs to be a commercial model, business model for these products to work. Remembering the large multinets, who set those scope 3 emissions, they are willing to pay premiums for this, and you're already seeing them being coming down the line in terms of those farmer payments through some of the processes. And so we take that all in consideration, and just work through each case case by case.
Here's I'm not quite sure how many $1 million question it is, but what do you think the price point is in New Zealand for successful adoption?
The price point, well, that assumes no productivity, I'm assuming. So if there's productivity gains from the product, then you could charge what there's the benefits as well. So a good proxy is if you look at the sort of carbon market type prices. I don't think that'll be a huge thing in New Zealand. We're not advocating carbon markets, but yeah. So it is hard to point out a number, but you can look at the premiums that have been thrown out by those processors again, and sort of make a call from that way. Again, it all depends on the efficacy and all those different considerations.
Any potential co-benefits, absolutely. What are the first combinations of technologies you envisage being stacked in the New Zealand context, and what research do you have in mind to support understanding how additive, synergistic or otherwise they may be when stacked?
Mm-hmm.
Give you guys a crack. I might come in on this one as well.
Do you want to kick off on this one, Naomi, and then we can follow? Change it up a bit.
So we at the AgriZeroNZ Centre, we do have on our work program looking at stackability of mitigations and really understanding at a biological level how additive they are. So that's something that we're looking at. Obviously, the key thing you need is things to stack, but there's active work looking at that already, particularly looking at adding some kind of an inhibitor to low methane genetics. But in terms of the first technologies you envisage being stacked, David and Deborah, I mean, you've already spoken a bit about ruminant biotech as being the first cab off the rank, but what else is looking really promising?
Yeah, so the pasture solution is also looking promising. Vaccines too, but it's a great question. It's that stackability word, which may be a new word created by us, but it's which we have to look in how they all work together, and further testing will be required, and I'm sure through the ACVM process, when there's those efficacy claims, that will be a consideration put on there.
Thanks. What global warming reduction in degrees centigrade will there be from using these products in New Zealand?
That's a great question, and we would love to have a straight answer for you on that. The trick with this will be the availability of tools, their time to market, and the relative efficacy reduction by adoption and uptake. So it's a little bit too early for us to say at this stage what that's going to look like, but we are just racing hard at our ambition. I mean, one of the things that we know is that New Zealand farmers have a long history of picking up innovations when they have a benefit for their business. So as David said, that's why we're really keen to understand the productivity, and it's a core aspect of the investment decisions we make in supporting those companies. And then, as Naomi said, one of the other parts is how can they be stackable? Is it low methane genetics plus pasture plus a vaccine or a bolus? How will that work from a scientific point of view? And then we can start to add those numbers together. And anyone who's really interested in that field, it would be great to have conversations with you on it.
Thanks, Deborah. How does your product release timeline align with MPI approval for use? So I guess that's just about how the regulatory approach fits with what you're up to.
Yeah, so it's quite different and from the perspective of a company's dossier and its progress through the regulatory pathway. So MPI have an advertised number of days to put products through. However, they can start in stock when a dossier needs more work to be done. So in our strategy engagement side, they work really hard with companies and with MPI or the EPA to ensure that the companies know exactly what's required of them as part of their testing and their trials, because we absolutely need to assure, animal health, welfare, safety, and efficacy. And so it's understanding how can you knit all of those in to a number of trials in a way that's both scientifically secure for those regulatory purposes, but also can help in terms of speeding things up. It's an absolutely live discussion, and it's quite bespoke depending on the product in the company and the stage that they're at.
Are you looking at investing in any novel methane measurement tools that could potentially help reduce the cost of efficacy trials?
Yes, I guess is the answer. We haven't yet.
Yeah.
So chambers and the green feeds are a suitable system at the moment, despite probably coming with the price tag. Yes, if there is good tech out there that will enable those animal trials to go quicker and more cost effectively, then we'd look to support. We know there's been work done on this globally that hasn't needed our investment at the moment, and so we're hopeful that they succeed as well.
Yeah. Can I just add with that new tech? Yeah, we're completely interested in it, but we also need to understand its acceptability from a regulatory point of view for either the products going through into ACVM type regulation, and also its acceptability or not, if it matters for inventory. So those are also aspects that inform our thinking when we look at investing in those kinds of tools. Thank you.
And both the Agrimission Centre and the Ministry for Primary Industries have invested in this area in the past as well. So again, if we're all scanning to look at this sort of thing, but if there are new ideas, let us know. Do you have a view on who's going to pay for the application of inhibitors on farm, i.e. between the farmers, processors, or ultimate brand owners? Who wants to take that one?
As David said earlier, we're seeing some of that pull through from customers now, and both like in Fonterra and with Synlait, and we would like to think that there'll be more pull through from those customers as tools and products come through the market. And it's a bit of a challenge for everybody, because that will be really important in terms of the financial return for farmers as well as processors and keeping our exports going. So absolutely a live discussion.
And how you potentially stitch that together across those different parties as well. Yeah. Are you considering applications for hort and arable sectors in terms of tools and tech?
That's not part of AgriZero's remit. We've been set up to support it from the point of view of methane and nitrous oxide emissions, but if people out there think that that's an important thing to be done, then I think it's a conversation to be kicking off with the sector bodies and the Ministry for Primary Industries would be my suggestion.
Sarah, are any trials being funded to characterise the potential reductions in methane and nitrous oxide emissions through using biochar as a feed additive?
I think there is work being done, independent of AgriZeroNZ. We've spoken to different key players in the industry. We haven't, as our investment list before, it showed we haven't made any investments. So I think work is going on, and if someone can prove that it reduces methane and reduces nitrous oxide, then with robust trials, then I'm keen to hear. But we haven't done anything so far.
We have a relatively small investment looking at biochar as a soil conditioner, but we're not currently investing in that area. There has been work previously, though, and I'm aware of the same things that David is. What were the main lessons you learned from the Bovaer experience? I assume this is the Arla situation, which was late last year for me.
That's a really good question. And lots of things. So it's amazing how public things can get when so quickly. And so we've heard from Arla and the like that their sales of Bovaer haven't gone down at all since that since the story came out, the media frenzy came out, and so it is back to sort of status quo. But it just makes us, we have to be aware that farmers are very protective and conscious about what they're feeding their animals, and so are the consumers about what they're eating. And so we just need to make sure that all the right tests and trials and everything is done properly to ensure that there's a full dossier there, in behind everything that we sell and promote.
Transparency is really key, AJ.
Yeah.
So I've got one for me. So I understand feed management and the matching of nutrients to cow demand is outside the remit of AgriZero, but would decision support systems be a technology to invest in, even if the return from 20,000 farmer subscriptions isn't of Netflix scale? So we are currently looking to refocus our farm systems research. We'll be looking at that over the next 6 to 12 months. And part of that is looking at what types of things are going to best support farmers to adopt technologies and to understand how mitigations and current practice add up on farm. So thinking about what that means in terms of decision support systems as part of that, it's not something we're looking to invest in at the moment, but it will be in scope for working through the type of research that's going to be most valuable. Will there be any opportunities for open discussions with the farmer focus group or a public report on their perspectives?
Great question, and we haven't kind of got to that part of our thinking, so I'm really happy to add that into the mix and come back. We only set up the farmer focus group. We've had a couple of meetings with them, and it's going really well, but it's fairly early days from that point of view. So yeah, we will bring that into the mix and look at how we communicate that down the track. It's a big ask for those farmers too.
Any guarantee of market for successful candidates?
Guarantee of market.
Yeah.
In terms of which international markets do you think?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's,
maybe should they clarify the question and we'll move to another one?
Yeah, get some, if that was Frank, if you want to add a bit more, Frank, into that, that would be great. With the tools closest to market, are they being tested in long-term studies, 12 months plus?
Yeah, so yep, so as part of the ACVM, there are rules around what you can use the products for, and depending, and they'll have length of trials that accommodate that. So reproductive trials, for example, need to have that longer time span. Efficacy trials don't, and so yeah, so it is a horses for horses type situation there.
There's a bit of an expansion on the consumer perception one, which I think you've largely covered off. Definitely consumer perception is part of what we look at. That was referencing the Bovair event. Premiums are in place with dairy. Are there indications for these in red meat in the near future?
So we haven't specifically heard from any of the meat processors around that, but we know there is demand from the international markets. You can see on the supermarket shelves today, you've got some zero carbon products, and so how that is passed down the value chain, we're not privy to that. But yeah, there's obviously demand for high premium quality protein, and as part of that's low emissions, and so there will be premiums paid for that. But probably, yeah, best ask your local processor.
Yeah. Can you provide commercial sites or farms where trials can be carried out?
Sorry, can you just repeat
So I
that?
assume that's if you've got a product. Does AgriZero help with commercial trials?
Yeah, so we have our LPs and their access to farms through our LPs, and we can set up that kind of work. There are various facilities around New Zealand, you'll know as well from the ag emissions point of view, where those kind of commercial trials can be done. I'm not sure I quite understand that question, if that is okay.
But we don't own any
Yeah.
trial farms or anything.
You
So you
can
have to,
provide information about it, eh?
yeah. So
Yeah, sure.
AgriZeroNZ,
Yeah.
Fonterra Farms, those are the types of places that'll be doing some of this testing.
Palmer has its new facility as
yeah.
well, St Kilda.
Given the new data coming from Ireland on the changes in methane emissions over the lactation, are the products tested over a full season? So you've sort of covered this one off to some extent, but the follow-on is, do your organisations, I assume the organisations that you fund, check the protocols for testing of the products alongside the ACBM?
I'm not quite sure that thing, but so this will have to go through ACVM and into the inventory. And we are working very closely with Trogich and Ireland and the likes to try and get a global view on things also. Because obviously there's the person asked the question, pointed out there is a seasonal curve of methane. We're trying to get it as accurate as possible without the need for ridiculously long animal trials that will see us not have our tools in market by when we want them. We need to get all the information together and I know that Fonterra and the like have got the Milker protocol, which is where all of those with the big 5 or 6 I think dairy companies are getting together and putting their own protocols together. And so it is really a coming together of minds and all the information. It is not relatively new, but a lot more focus in the last few years on this area. So everyone is getting together and getting the right standards out there.
Hey, if you get productivity increases and no increase in methane, e.g. intensity of emissions are reduced, is this a success, as productivity increase will aid farmer uptake?
Depends who you talk to.
I think it does.
From an AgriZero perspective?
Probably not. But as a product, it's a success, isn't it? So it won't help us to achieve our emission. We've got an absolute target. So so no. But I mean, if we fund something that's got productivity benefits and then can't quite make the methane work, but the productivity goes, then good luck to them.
The next question is, will you use a regulatory approach to encourage uptake of new technologies? I think that one's more of a government question rather than any of us. Then we've got, firstly, the investments look awesome, so that's good. Is there targeted support or partnerships in place to support multi-agribusinesses to access and implement emissions reduction solutions, and maybe adaptable once available to consider cultural values?
Yeah, so we have a shared advisory group with the Ag Mission Centre, and we've been in conversations with some of the large Māori agribusinesses around a pathway to adoption and uptake. So absolutely, that's on our work program.
It is part of our investment criteria as well. We need to look at it from that aspect too.
How do the new tools get included into current methane models to get attribution?
I'm wondering if that's a question relating to attribution for inventory purposes,
possibly.
perhaps, in which case that would be really a conversation to be had with MPI, and we'd be really happy to help facilitate that if you need some context. Thank you.
There's also work underway to have to get consistent on-farm emissions calculation, sitting within the likes of the models and tools that Fonterra and FarmAX and FarmIQ and those types of things use. So again, MPI is a really good source of information on that. I'm sure you've got an answer for this one. Whilst getting these mitigations operating in NZ is a priority, have you looked at selling this tech to other countries to bring revenue into New Zealand? I reckon that's a you one, David.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of it. All of our agreements say that the companies have to commercialise in New Zealand. That's why we're investing in them. But if they can also commercialise overseas, and that'd be fantastic. So yeah, so the domestic companies, yes, they will go overseas, and be a successful company, because as I said very early on, some of the companies are focusing on the US and Europe because the feedlot is potentially an easier system to address, but 80% of livestock globally is on pastures, and so there is a huge market for this tech. And so yeah, it will be the natural evolution to try and roll out the technology globally.
And we've got time for one more question. In your investment decisions, do you consider how far a technology is from market rollout, i.e. to ensure that all investments aren't 10 years away, and get a more staged rollout of technologies to farmers?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay.
Trying to get things in the hands of farmers as soon as we can. But if it is the silver bullet, we will, and it's going to take 10 years, then we will invest in that also.
Fantastic. I'm really keen to keep us to time. So thank you very much, David and Deborah, for your time today, and for giving us a lot of information about AgriZero, your investments, and how that's all operating. Fantastic interest. We had around 115 attendees. So thank you all for attending. As I noted at the beginning, the presentation has been recorded, and a link provided on the Ag Emissions Centre website will be there within about a week. So thank you for the attendees. Thanks again, David and Deborah, and we look forward to seeing you at the next State of Science seminar.